So, it seems as though you found yourself at the campsite of the Orator. Well, as you can see, I have stoked the fire, which means it's time to pull up your chair and settle in, because I have another tale to tell. Ghosts come in many different varieties. There are, of course, your friendly ghosts who warn you and protect you. There are those that are mischievous and like to mess with you and move things around. There are even those that like to vanish in front of the eyes. But there's one type of ghost that nobody wants to see. Could you survive 5 months with the poltergeist? But before we begin today's story, if you find yourself enjoying this kind of content, first-hand, true accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, then allow the spirits to guide your planchette to both the like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload new content, which is twice a week, every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Second, of course, all of my stories are true, first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal. Today's story is actually submitted by somebody who wants to remain anonymous. But if you or anybody you know has a story and you think it would fit well on my channel, then please just reach out to me on any of my social media and we'll find a time to collect your story and potentially one day feature it here on The Orator. And now with all of that out of the way, let's get on to today's tale. It is a story that I call 5 Months. It's the fall of 2009. Amy is 18 years old, and she's an only child, and her parents have just decided to rent a new house. The problem is, this is a new house for them, but it's not a new house overall. In fact, the landlord's previous tenants had completely destroyed this house. I mean, when they pulled up to this thing, it was just garbage everywhere. The walls were dirty, everything had been destroyed, and the house itself was not in great condition. But they were getting it for a really, really good deal, and so they decided to move forward with it anyway. And Amy's parents spent a couple of weeks before moving in just prepping the house. They went in themselves and cleaned everything, put everything back together, fixed a few things up to really make the house livable. And Amy said when she first moved in, it looked better than when she had first seen it, but it was still a pretty miserable house. The only thing that was cool about it was that it was pretty big. It sat back away from the road on this long gravel driveway, and it just had a really big yard and lots of space outside, but then on the inside, there were 3 different bedrooms, and then they had built on a 4th bedroom, and that bedroom was actually Amy's bedroom, and she chose it because it was the second biggest one. So obviously, the largest bedroom, which was the master bedroom, belonged to the parents, and it had on the attached bathroom and all that, but the second biggest room, that was the one that was built on after the house was done, Amy took. And it was in the far back side of the house, and she said that, you know, even though the house itself needed repair, she really loved this room. It was large, it was her own room, she had lots of space, and she just really enjoyed having that much space of her own in a relatively big house. And for the first few days, even though the house did need help, Amy really enjoyed herself. She said she was really excited for everything that was going on, and the move and everything like that. She was in a great place until things started to go wrong. So this is only a few days after they've moved in, and the day itself was really nice. Amy actually remembered and said, I remember this day because nothing about it was weird. It didn't seem dark or ominous. The entire day itself was beautiful and bright outside. And then at some point, both of her parents went to work, and they worked in the evenings. And so now Amy is alone by herself, and she has to use the restroom. And so she gets up out of her bed, and she goes over to the bathroom. She opens the bathroom door, and as soon as she steps into the bathroom, it all of a sudden feels really cold in there. And this is a sensation, even though she's only been in this house a few days, she hasn't felt this anywhere. She's moved throughout the entire house, and she didn't feel any cold spots. Even though it is fall, it's still really, really warm where they're at, and so it's not cold anywhere else in the house. And she'd used the bathroom earlier today, and it wasn't cold then. So it's really weird. As soon as she steps in, it feels oddly cold in there, but she just has to go to the bathroom. So she sits down, she does her business, she gets up, she goes over to the sink, and she starts to wash her hands. And as she starts washing her hands, she she suddenly feels this dark, ominous, she said it felt male, this male, like, presence behind her. And she said not only was it dark and ominous, it felt genuinely violent. And as soon as she felt it, she like looked up and looked around because it felt like she was being watched or something. And there's nobody there in the bathroom. But then all of a sudden, the light in the bathroom explodes. It leaves her in total darkness in this bathroom. And as the light explodes, she hears what sounds to her like a fist punching the mirror, the bathroom mirror. And she hears the bathroom mirror shatter. And there's enough light that she's looking at it, and it didn't shatter. It sounded like it did. It sounds like glasses crashing down around her, but as she's looking, the mirror's totally fine. And so she freaks out. I mean, something crazy is going on. She turns, she opens the door to the bathroom, and she's trying to open the bathroom door, and it is stuck. She can't get out. And there's no reason for this. It's not locked. It's not stuck fast in the frame. She just can't get it open. And so she continues to tug, and eventually she rips the door open. Now, whatever was holding that door back eventually released its grip, and she just got out, and she ran straight for the door. And as she's running for the door, something grabs her shirt from behind and yanks her and throws her into the wall. And now she slams against the wall, and she crumples down, and she's hurt from the fact that she was thrown against the wall, and she's looking around, and there's nobody there. And so she just starts screaming, and as she's screaming, she feels these hands that she can't see wrap around her throat and start choking her. And she goes from screaming to not even being able to breathe. And she's trying to rip these hands away from her throat, but there's not actually anything there. And so she's just scrambling, tugging at her throat, trying to scream. She can't breathe. She feels like she's on the verge of passing out when finally this hand or set of hands releases her. And she falls to the ground, and she wants to run for the door, but she's scared that if she tries to escape, this thing is going to attack her again. So instead, she turns around and she runs into the kitchen. And as she's running into the kitchen, once again, she feels this entity, whatever it is, grab her from behind on her shirt and yank her back. And instead, this time, Amy turns around and she swings at it. She throws a punch at this thing, just trying to get away. And all of a sudden, whatever this thing is, it starts punching her. It's hitting her on the back. It's hitting her on the arms. She can't see this thing. There's nothing here, and she's feeling it wailing on her everywhere, and there's nothing she can do. And so all of a sudden, she just runs out of the kitchen and jumps onto the couch. And at this point, she's screaming and she's crying and she doesn't know what to do. And she's on this couch, and then all of a sudden, all of this weird oppression starts to dissipate. It's like all of the coldness that was there, this dark, ominous feeling that was there, it's just gone. And the house feels totally normal again. And so right away, Amy, she jumps up, she runs outside, and she calls her parents on her phone. And it takes a couple seconds, and eventually her mom picks up, and she's screaming that something happened and somebody broke into the house, and she doesn't understand what happened. She's trying to explain this to her mom, and that she couldn't see the attacker, and she doesn't really want to put into words that she thinks it was something supernatural because she's just scared of how that's going to sound. And so she just is panicked enough to make it sound like something bad enough happened to her. Her mom calls, her Amy's dad, and they both decide to come home. So they come home right away from work. They leave early. They get home, and they listen to her story. And they don't think it's something supernatural, but based off of her story, it definitely sounds like somebody was in the house. So they're asking her, like, is it possible that this attack just happened so fast that you didn't see the attacker's face? And they're asking her these questions, and the more she's answering, it's like the more she's realizing they don't believe her, and they're trying to find some kind of actual, like, reasonable explanation for this. And in her head, she's like, the house was lit up. I know what I saw. But they do call the police, and the police show up, and they do a thorough walkthrough of the house. They see the broken light bulb. They see a little bit of the dishevelment around the kitchen. They have her, they take pictures of all the different parts where she said she was hit. Her body has no marks on it, except her neck is red, as though somebody had put their hands around her neck. So they take pictures of that, and they just tell her, look, There wasn't any sign of a break-in in the house. She said that all the doors and windows and stuff were locked. They're like, there was no forced entry. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened here, but it's possible that you just left your door or window unlocked. Somebody got in, they attacked you and left, and they're like, when this happens, sometimes it's just so traumatic that people don't have an explanation for it. They think something different has happened, and so the police are no help, her parents are no help, and so that night, Amy goes online, and she starts looking at forums and looking up, what do you do, or what could this entity be that attacked me? And, a lot of people didn't think that she was serious. Her account was so overt, so physical, that a lot of people were making fun of her and calling her a liar. And then, of course, there was another piece of the community that was helping her, trying to give her suggestions, asking if she saw certain things or heard certain things. Did she hear noise? Did it growl at her? Did she smell anything? And now as she's thinking of the encounter, she does remember that while she was in the kitchen, she did smell this like rotting meat or death kind of smell. And so that part is connecting, and they're giving her other suggestions, and things are starting to make sense. The cold and the ominous feeling. And basically, the community that she's on a part of, these forums, they come up with two different things. It's either a malevolent ghost or it could be potentially demonic. And so now she's kind of researching both of these things and trying to figure everything out. But she's not saying anything to anybody. She doesn't want to tell her parents. She doesn't want to tell her friends. She's worried that if she tells anybody that she actually knows, they're not going to believe her anyway. And so she's starting to take comfort and solace in this online community, who at least a part of them are taking her seriously. And another month and a half goes by, a whole month and a half, and nothing else happens. It's totally normal, no other odd experiences in the house. And now all of a sudden we're late in November, and even though it's in November, it's still pretty warm outside. It's daytime, and both of Amy's parents are home. She's in her bedroom, and she's just reading a book at her desk, when all of a sudden, while she's sitting there reading, that feeling comes over, that ominous, dark, scary, murderous intent, male dominance feeling. And it's accompanied, once again, by this rush of, cold in her bedroom. And she's like, the day, even though it was November, the whole day was warm. It wasn't like there was a draft or anything. The room got cold. And so this whole feeling is so familiar to her that she just starts to panic. She immediately, her brain is in fight or flight, and it tells her to get up and run, but she's actually so scared of this entity that she's frozen in place, and she's just sitting there kind of waiting for something to happen. And then as nothing is happening, she's starting to gain courage kind of. And so she stands up and she takes a step towards the door, when all of a sudden she does hear this growling kind of sound, like someone's growling at her from in the room. And so she stops and she's panicked and she's looking around, and then she's about to call out for her mom, because remember, her parents are home and it's the middle of the day, when all of a sudden an invisible hand she can't see slaps her across the face so hard it literally knocks her to the bed. And so she's knocked down on the bed, and this feeling is still there, and she starts bawling her eyes out loud. And just then her mom walks into her bedroom, and she's got some laundry. She was doing laundry, she was getting ready to bring it to Amy, and she just so happens to walk in on that exact moment. And she walks in and she sees Amy on the bed holding her face, crying, and she's like, baby, what's wrong? What happened? And Amy, she's so scared to tell her mom the truth that she just totally fabricates a lie. She said that she was asleep, and that's why her cheek is so red, and she just woke up and she had this really bad nightmare, which is why she was crying. And she just fabricates this whole story. And her mom kind of takes it and says, okay, that's a little bit of a strange story, but whatever. She moves on, and that's that. And so after that, her mom gets up and she leaves, and that feeling is dissipated now from the room. It basically did the second her mom walked in. And now, once again, Amy is left alone with no explanation and nowhere to turn except online. So for the next 3 months, Amy continues to put up with this. Violence in the household, all of this scary supernatural stuff, something physically attacking her. I mean, all of the stuff that happened before continues for the next 3 months at random intervals. And this whole time, Amy doesn't tell anybody, but it's really starting to take a toll on her physical and mental health. She's getting exhausted. She can't sleep well. She's becoming irritable. She snaps at everybody. She's mean. She's just totally becoming a different person. And her parents, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and she's not telling them the truth. But meanwhile, she's escaping to these online forums and looking up information and trying to figure out what's going on. And so she feels comfort in that community, and she's putting all of the truth there. So she feels like she doesn't need to put it anywhere else. The problem is, over these last few months, she's changed so drastically, and she's not giving her parents any real advice and reason why she's doing this. And so eventually her parents, they put her in a psychiatrist's office, and she gets put on antidepressants, and they're just trying to figure out what's wrong with their daughter. And so this is just going on and on and on for months, and nobody has any clue what they're going to do and how to resolve this issue, when all of a sudden, we're on our 5th month at this house. And everybody's in the living room. Mom and Dad are on the couch. Amy's in a chair. And they're all just watching a movie together. It's the evening time. Everybody's relaxed. When all of a sudden, Amy feels that chilling, cold feeling come over her. Now, it's not that mean, oppressive feeling yet. It's just that chilly cold. But she knows what's coming. And so she gets up from the chair, she crosses across the living room to the couch, and she squeezes in between her mom and dad on the couch and just sort of lays on her mom. And her mom gives her a kiss on the head, and she's kind of giving her a hug. And all of a sudden, she feels Amy literally shaking in her hand. And she's like, Amy, what's wrong? What's wrong? And Amy just won't answer. She's so scared that she won't answer. And she's holding her. She's like, sweetie, what's going on? What's going on? And then all of a sudden, it happens. Amy feels it. It goes from just being cold to that dark, oppressive, angry feeling. And Amy, she jumps up out of the couch to run away. She doesn't even know what to do. She just knows she does not want to be here when this thing attacks. And then all of a sudden, right in front of both her parents, it happens. Things start flying off the shelves. I mean, pottery, books, anything that's sitting out starts flying off and to Amy directly. And it's hitting her. And all of a sudden, her parents start freaking out. Her dad jumps up, and he hugs her, and he's just getting hit with all of this stuff trying to protect his daughter. And then all of a sudden, something grabs Amy's hair, something invisible that no one can see, and it yanks her out of her dad's grip and down on the floor and starts pulling her through the house. And Amy's parents, they're screaming and running through the house. They're trying to catch up to their daughter and grab her, and eventually they do. Their dad grabs her, and he scoops her up, and he picks her up into his arms, and he's holding her. And as he's holding her, him and his wife, they're screaming at whatever this entity is. Leave us alone! Get out of here! Leave us alone! And it's not dissipating. It's only getting worse. All of a sudden, Amy's dad gets hit in the chest by something and flies back. Amy gets the same thing. She gets punched in the face by something, and it knocks her down, and the mom is just screaming, and so she grabs Amy by the hand, she grabs her husband by the hand, and she just runs, and all three of them, they get dragged up, and they run out the door and straight to their van. They get in the van, they leave, and they never went back in that house again. They didn't go pick up any of their stuff. They had movers go do that, and they ended up moving to a new place. Now, after they had left, and they drove away, and they're trying to figure everything out, finally, Amy breaks down and she tells them what has been happening since they moved in there. And it's like they should have, it's one of those situations where if she had just gone to them earlier, maybe something could have been fixed, because Amy didn't realize both of her parents were also experiencing supernatural phenomenon in that house. None of it was as overt or physical as what she, was experiencing, but she said, like, they would experience knocks on the walls, lights flickering, seeing shadows. All of the typical stuff you see with a haunted house, some sort of spirit, they experienced a lot of that. And so they thought something was going on in the house. And now with this massive experience, that was it. They were done. But they had one more thing they needed to do. They needed to figure out what was actually going on in this house. And so, of course, they called the landlord and they asked, what happened with these previous tenants? And the landlord, of course, breaks down and tells them everything. The house had originally been owned previously by a guy named Jacob, and Jacob lived there with his wife. They had some kids and his mom, so their kids' grandparents. And Jacob was a very violent man, and he would physically harm the girls in the house. And then his brother moved in, and he would threaten him with physical violence or even death. And so it's like everybody in this house was afraid of Jacob. He was a big, tall, strong guy, no nonsense. And apparently one day he came home, and the whole day had been very, very bad. And he comes home and the house is a mess and it's chaotic and he is just done. And he goes off the deep end and his entire family locked themselves in that added on bedroom, Amy's bedroom, while he just lost it and broke everything in the house, destroyed everything, and then eventually he breaks into their door, through their door into the room, and he goes and kills every single one of them. And then Jacob went into the bathroom and he hanged himself in there. And so there's all of this violence in this house perpetuated by this one man. And it's all centered around the bathroom where he hanged himself, the bedroom where he killed everybody else and where Amy stayed, and the living room where he went on a rampage and threw everything around, destroying the entire house. And so after that, Amy, her parents, they moved into a new place. Thankfully, everything went well. But here we are, 15 years later, and Amy says she still sometimes has trouble sleeping when she remembers the time that she had to survive in a house for 5 months with a poltergeist. And so that's going to do it for today's tale. If you found yourself enjoying this story or any of the other ones on my channel, first-hand true accounts of the supernatural, paranormal, things that go bump in the night, then allow the spirits to guide your planchette to both the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload new content, which is twice a week, every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Second, all of my stories are true first-hand accounts of the supernatural and paranormal. I will make sure to link today's story in the comments below. But if you're anybody you know has a story and you think it would fit well on my channel, just reach out to me on any of my social media and we will find a time to collect your story and potentially one day feature it here on The Orator. And so until next time, where you'll pull up your chair and settle in, my fire will be stoked, and I will have another tale to tell.